Welcome to Crying Inside, where every family story holds not just pain, but also strength and lessons for us to grow. This is a safe place for those who have had to smile while their hearts were breaking, for those hurt by the people they loved most. If you've ever quietly swallowed tears, if you've sacrificed everything for your family only to be met with silence or betrayal, you'll find yourself in these stories. At Crying Inside, we share family stories inspired by real life, where love, trust, and loss intertwine, and each ending leaves a meaningful message. We believe sometimes a single story can change how you see love, forgiveness, and your own worth. Today, I'm going to tell you a family story I never thought I'd have the courage to share until things went beyond the limit. It's a story about financial betrayal, tested family bonds, and the moment I realized I had to choose between staying hurt or standing up to save myself. Stay with me until the end. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss any family story that might touch your heart. The suitcase right beside me wasn't fully closed yet. One zipper was still open, with a few white shirts and a light cotton dress sticking out, as if urging me to leave quickly. I stood in the departure area of Ninoy Aquino Airport, yellow lights reflecting on the shiny tile floor, the smell of roasted coffee from a nearby stall, blending with the rolling of suitcases and the steady announcements reminding passengers not to leave their luggage unattended. I gripped the suitcase handle tightly, trying to hold on to the last bit of calm. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The screen lit up, showing a name I knew all too well. Miguel, my older brother. The message read just one sentence. 8. Why hasn't anything been paid? We're at the check-in counter. I stood still, staring at those words. In a flash, all the years I silently carried debt, paid Dad's hospital bills, helped my brother and sister-in-law pay rent, missed my own vacations, all came rushing back like a fast-forwarded movie reel, each image a small cut in my heart. I took a deep breath, then typed back exactly 3 words. What did you say? No explanation, no excuse, no sign of regret. Those 3 words were like a mirror, reflecting exactly what my mother said to me 2 days ago, light words, but enough to slam every door inside me shut. I put the phone in my pocket, not even bothering to see how he would reply. Gripping the suitcase handle tightly, I turned and pulled it toward the check-in counter on the other side, the one for flights to El Nido, Palawan. Not Boracay, not the business class trip my family had dreamed of. This was the first trip in my life, completely, for myself. A trip with no financial betrayal, no toxic family, no looks or words that made me feel like just a wallet to be fed. 2 days ago, while I was still on night shift at the hospital, my phone buzzed. My mother's voice came through, soft as if she was announcing vegetable prices at the market. Plane ticket Otter X65,000 each, 1,200 USD. If you don't have the money, stay home. No asking if I wanted to go. No offer to share the cost. Just a short sentence, cutting off all possibility. I went silent for a few seconds, trying to keep my voice calm. Yes, I understand. And maybe it was that calm tone that made her believe I would stay silent and accept it like dozens of times before. Outsiders don't know what led to this moment, but I know very well. This isn't just a missed trip. This is the last straw of a life, treated like a walking ATM for the family. A family where love only existed when I paid with sweat, health, and even my small dreams. Whenever they needed something, I was the first to be called, but whenever I was weak, needing a hand to hold, all I got was silence. Standing at the airport among busy travelers preparing for their journeys, I felt an unusual calm. No more trembling from fear of being blamed, no more calculations on how to scrape together enough money for them. This time, I'm not running after fixing other people's mistakes. I'm not borrowing money to save a plan I was never even asked about. I won't turn myself into a lifeline for people who never learned how to swim on their own. I looked up at the electronic board showing the departure time, the LED lights blinking the destination. El Nido, 14:45. I pulled my suitcase toward the check-in counter, feeling each step slowly untie the invisible ropes that had bound me for years. A phrase I recently read echoed in my mind. You don't have to burn yourself to keep others warm. In a few hours, I'll breathe the sea breeze of Palawan, watch the sunset fall on the crystal clear waters, and no one will call asking me to pay their bills anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a prisoner of family ties. I only felt free. And at that moment I knew this story, a story about a deeply wounded family, about financial betrayal hidden behind the mask of family love, would no longer end like it did before. My name is Maria Lopez, 33 years old, a nurse at a large hospital in Quezon City. I live alone in a small apartment, just enough to have a cozy kitchen corner, a balcony overlooking the main street, and a desk piled with medical documents. My life is simple. Work shifts, come home and cook a light dinner, and occasionally treat myself to an afternoon stroll in the park or a visit to my favorite cafe. I'm not married, and I don't have kids. Many people think that means I have plenty of free time and extra money. My family includes my mother, Teresita, a woman in her 60s, small in stature but with a sharp voice when needed. She cares deeply about family reputation and what the neighbors think. My father, Rogelio, is quieter but usually chooses silence in conflicts, a silence I understood as silent agreement. My older brother, Miguel, is 4 years older than me, married to Andrea, a woman 2 years younger than him. They have 2 kids, and Miguel's job is unstable. Sometimes he works in tourism, other times he tries online business, but nothing lasts more than a few months. We are a typical Filipino family, where fiestas are occasions for the whole family to gather, lay out a feast, and invite neighbors and friends to eat together. At every misa at the nearby church, the whole family usually dresses up nicely, then goes out to eat together afterward. Birthday parties are often lively, with lechon, pancit, and loud music. On the surface, everything seems warm and close-knit, but beneath that polite exterior, I know our family relationships are far from simple. Since I started working, I've basically become the family's bank. Their reason was straightforward. You're not married yet, don't have kids, and your job is stable, so you have more responsibility. It sounded like recognition, but really it was a subtle reminder that I should prioritize them over myself. At first, I thought it was normal. As a nurse, my income was enough to support myself and help the family when needed. One time, Miguel called saying he was short on tuition money for his child. I sent it right away without hesitation. When Mom needed money to fix the roof before the rainy season, I managed to provide it. Dad was hospitalized for high blood pressure. I paid all the medical bills without much thought. Every time I helped, I just hoped for a sincere thank you. But gradually, I realized that appreciation never lasted. Instead, it became expected. Sometimes when I said no because I really couldn't afford it, their reactions were always the same. Mom would say, gently but pointedly, "It's okay if you don't help, but you know, family means supporting each other." Dad stayed silent, his eyes full of reproach. Miguel would force a smile. "It's okay, 8. I'll find another way." But then Andrea would post sarcastic comments on Facebook like, "Some people only know how to keep money for themselves." That's emotional abuse, not loud words, but enough to make me feel guilty, even though I did nothing wrong. During fiestas or family parties, when everyone gathers, I'm still the one expected to cover most of the expenses. If I don't chip in, the party will be less grand, and they say this in front of everyone. I've sat at the dinner table, surrounded by laughter and chatter, feeling lonely and exhausted because I know I'm here not out of love, but because of my wallet. I still remember one evening, after my night shift, I stopped by my mom's house to give some money for Dad's medicine. As soon as I placed the envelope on the table, my mom smiled. "You always think about the family, unlike some people who only think about themselves." That sounded like a compliment, but I knew it was her way of tying me to the role of the responsible one, and if I stepped away, I'd become the bad one in their eyes. For many years, I kept that role, partly out of love, partly out of fear of feeling guilty whenever I said no. But the price I paid was that I never got to spend my time and money on myself. I got used to putting others' needs before mine, until that cold comment about the doubly 65,000 flight came up, and I realized my boundaries had been erased long ago. That evening, the whole family gathered at my mom's house to talk about the vacation. I had just finished my shift, still in my nurse uniform, stopping by only to bring some medicine for Dad. But when I walked in, I saw them sitting around the dining table, phones and tablets open, the flight booking site showing pictures of long white sandy beaches and leaning palm trees. My mom, unusually excited, said, "This year, we're going to Boracay, business class. The whole family deserves a proper break." Miguel added, "That's right, 8. Everyone's been stressed this past year. We deserve a break." I sat down quietly. In my head, my personal budget spreadsheet popped up. Nearly half the apartment loan still unpaid, graduate school tuition due next month, and everyday living expenses that can't be ignored. This trip, especially business class, was completely beyond my means right now. I smiled politely. "I can't go. Next month I have tuition to pay, plus the house loan." No one responded directly, but I felt the mood slightly drop. My mom cleared her throat softly, glanced at Miguel, then looked back at the tablet screen. My dad said nothing, just kept eating. Andrea, my sister-in-law, gave me a quick glance, that look I had seen many times before. She always finds excuses not to join. I went home right after that, trying to push it aside. But 2 days later, while on night shift at the hospital, my phone rang. At first, I thought it was just a normal notification from the bank. But when I opened it, my heart sank. "New transaction, 4 business class plane tickets, W260,000. Your name is not on the passenger list." I clicked on the transaction details. The names appeared one by one. Teresita Lopez. My mom, Rogelio Lopez. My dad, Miguel Lopez. My older brother, Andrea Lopez. My sister-in-law. No, Maria Lopez. Not at all. I sat silently in the on-duty room, a chill spreading from my fingertips up to my neck. This wasn't the first time my credit card was used without my permission. But this time, the amount was so big it exceeded my usual monthly spending limit. And more importantly, it was a trip I had clearly said I wouldn't join. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Their familiar words echoed in my head. Family helps each other. If you don't help, who will? We're blood, no need to count. Those words used to soften my heart, but this time, they didn't work anymore. Instead, a wave of anger mixed with clarity washed over me. I opened the banking app, tapped Dispute Transaction, and selected Unauthorized as the reason. Then, I immediately froze my card. When confirmed, the phone screen turned green with the message, "Your card has been temporarily blocked." Seeing that felt like shutting a door that had always been left open for others to walk in and take whatever they wanted. Not long after, my phone buzzed. A message from Miguel. 8. Why hasn't anything been paid? We're at the check-in counter. I let that message sit for a few seconds. Part of me wanted to explain, to say I couldn't take it anymore. But another part whispered, "No need. Just reply like they used to say to me." I typed, "What you said," then set my phone aside. No need to see their reaction. At that moment, I knew I had laid the first stone for a big change. No more, Maria always helps. No more 8 will take care of everything. This will be the first time in years that I choose to stand up for myself, and also the first time my family has to face the consequences of their own decisions. The next morning, just waking up after a long night shift, my phone kept buzzing with a bunch of messages from Miguel. "Sis, why hasn't anything been paid? We're at the check-in counter. The staff said the payment didn't go through. What's going on?" I sat up, leaned against the headboard, reading those messages and imagining them standing at the airport, faces a mix of frustration and confusion over the failed transaction. Maybe they never thought the day would come when I wouldn't be the one to bail them out. I took a sip of cold coffee on the table, opened the reply box, and typed exactly 3 words, just like what my mom said to me 2 days ago. What you said? Short, cold, but to me, it was a payback for all the times I swallowed my silence, a message that the old game is over. I didn't explain, didn't justify, didn't apologize, just let that message sit there like a full stop to the fix-it-all role they always expected me to play. I set my phone aside and opened my laptop. This time, not to fix things for them, but to book a trip just for myself. After a few clicks, the destination appeared. El Nido, Palawan, a place I dreamed of for a long time, but never allowed myself to rest and go, always putting others' needs first. I picked a flight leaving that same afternoon, window seat, economy class, costing just a fraction of the business class seats they booked. But its value was priceless, because this time, it bought me freedom. I stood up to pack, folded my sea blue maxi dress, a few comfy outfits, flip-flops, and 2 books I'd planned to read for a while. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone buzzed again with messages and missed calls from Mom, Miguel, and even Andrea, but I didn't answer. Each buzz reminded me of the times I dropped what I was doing to help them, only to be met with looks of disdain or those subtle remarks. When the suitcase was closed, I realized I was smiling. Not a victorious smile, but the smile of someone who just took back control of her own life. That is the power in silence. No noise, no shouting, just a firm action to say, enough is enough. That afternoon, I went to the airport, not knowing if they were still there or had already flown, and I didn't really care. I headed straight to the El Nido check-in counter, got my boarding pass, then sat in the waiting area, looking out at the runway, where planes lined up, ready to take off. My mother's words still echoed in my mind. If you don't have enough money, then stay home. But this time, I wasn't staying home. I chose a different destination, a place where I wouldn't have to pay a price just to be present. As the plane lifted off the ground, through the window I saw the blue patches of the sea and the white strips of sand shrinking away. I knew I was opening a new chapter, one where I would no longer sacrifice myself just to keep the peace, but live true to my own limits and needs. Sometimes, the greatest strength isn't standing up to confront, but quietly walking away and letting them realize the value they lost. Sitting on the plane heading to El Nido, I closed my eyes, trying to clear my mind. But the silence only made old memories flood back clearer. Every story, every time I was drained, as if my memory was rewinding itself. The first time was when Miguel called me at the end of his daughter's semester. His voice was hurried, sounding like he was about to cry. 8. The tuition fee hasn't been paid yet. There are only 3 days left before the deadline. I promise to pay you back as soon as I have the money. At that time, I had just received my salary and was planning to set aside some for a new laptop for my postgraduate studies. But I didn't think twice and transferred him the full amount he needed. A month passed, then 2 months, and no one mentioned paying it back. When I gently asked, Miguel just laughed. Family helps each other, 8. No need to count. His words sounded easy, but inside me, it was the first scratch. The second incident happened 2 years later. My mother called me, her voice low, saying the roof at the house in the province was badly leaking and the rainy season was coming. If it wasn't fixed, it would be ruined. She said, "Please help me with this money. Later the house will be left for you kids. Consider it an investment in your inheritance." I believed her. I gathered money, even withdrew some savings, and sent her the full amount she needed. A year later, I heard the house had been sold. No one asked for my opinion. When I questioned it, Mom just said, "Selling it is to take care of what's needed. Don't overthink it. It's all for the family." I swallowed my words, but the feeling of being treated like just a wallet became clearer. Then last year, my dad had a mild stroke. That day, I was on duty when Miguel kept calling urgently. 8. Dad needs to be hospitalized immediately, but the deposit is too high. We don't have enough. I left my shift and rushed straight to the hospital. At the payment counter, I paid the full amount without a second thought. After Dad was stable, I went home feeling relieved, thinking at least this was something I should do for him. But just a few weeks later, I heard from an acquaintance that Miguel and Andrea had used the money meant for hospital fees to throw a big birthday party for their child. They explained, "Family helps each other, so since you covered the hospital fees and everything, we didn't need to pitch in." 3 times I helped unconditionally, and 3 times I got silence, avoidance, or the familiar line. Family helps each other. At first, this made me feel like I was doing the right thing, that it was my duty as a son and sibling. But gradually, I realized this wasn't a reminder of love. It was a weapon they used to make me feel guilty every time I tried to say no. I remember once saying no to a big loan because I really couldn't afford it. Mom was silent for a few seconds, then softly said, "You don't have to help. But remember, family always stands together in hard times." Dad just stayed silent, his eyes like I'd done something wrong. Miguel posted a status on Facebook. Some people only think about themselves, forgetting that family blood is what matters most. It didn't name names, but everyone knew who it was about. Every old memory felt like a small cut, building up into scars I've become used to carrying. I used to think I could endure it for the sake of family. But now, looking back at everything, I see one thing clearly. I was taken advantage of. And the worst part is, I allowed it to happen, over and over again. Sitting on the plane, I looked out the window. The sky was clear blue, white clouds drifting slowly, but inside me, there was a storm. It's not a storm of momentary anger, but the awakening, after years of being controlled by sweet words filled with pressure. This time, I won't forget. This time, I won't let it go. This time, the phrase, family helps each other, won't be an excuse for them to take anything from me anymore. That night, as I sat on the hotel balcony in El Nido, sipping hot coffee and listening to the waves, my phone buzzed with a Facebook message notification from a name I hadn't seen in years. Clarice, Miguel's ex-wife. Maria, sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to you. It's about Miguel. I was a bit surprised. Since their divorce, Clarice had almost disappeared from my family's life. I don't know why they split, only that Clarice is straightforward, capable, and doesn't tolerate ambiguity. I replied, "What's going on?" She sent me a PDF file with the message, "You should see everything, and keep it safe." Curious mixed with a bad feeling, I opened the file. Page after page appeared. Bank statements, transfer screenshots, transaction, confirmation emails, all showing Miguel had withdrawn money from the family fund. Money my parents set aside for emergencies, then invested it in online lottery bets and cryptocurrency, and unsurprisingly, he lost it all. But it wasn't over. The last emails in the file left me speechless. An email from my mother to Clarice. "Please don't tell Maria. She'll get angry and cut us off. We'll find a way to pay it back." Another email from my father. "We'll handle this. Don't worry. Maria doesn't need to know." I sat frozen, feeling like the air around me had turned to stone. They knew long ago that Miguel had spent the family fund, and they deliberately hid it from me. They even kept borrowing money from me, using all kinds of excuses, just to cover up that debt. Clarice messaged again, "This Boracay trip isn't for vacation. It's because Miguel and Andrea are under too much stress after the debts piled up. They told your parents it's a trip to relieve pressure, and then plan to borrow more." I read that message over and over. The final pieces of the puzzle now fit together. Those times they called me in the middle of the night to borrow, the vague explanations, the comments like family helps each other. All of it was just to cover up a simple and harsh truth. I was just a source of money to compensate for their recklessness and irresponsibility. My hands trembled, partly from anger and partly from disappointment. Not because of the money. I know money can be earned back, but because of the trust I gave them unconditionally, which they used as a tool to exploit me. Clarice called me right after that. Her voice was serious but full of sympathy. "Maria, I'm not bringing this up to cause more trouble, but I think you deserve to know the truth. They won't stop unless you stop them." We talked for almost an hour. Clarice told me she discovered Miguel had been gambling online and blindly investing in crypto since they were still living together. She warned my parents, but they chose to protect Miguel, afraid I would find out and make a big deal. As a result, the debt kept growing. The family fund was drained, and they started borrowing from me to cover it up. When the call ended, I looked out at the dark sea. The waves still crashed steadily against the shore, but inside me, there was a different kind of wave, stronger and more relentless. If before I still had some hope that it was all just a misunderstanding, now it was completely gone. I was no longer the little sister, the daughter who always ran after them to help. I had become a victim caught in a cycle they deliberately maintained, and this truth, the truth Clarice just handed me, would be the weapon to end it. I closed my laptop, saved the file into a separate folder on my hard drive named Evidence. For the first time in years, I felt I was no longer on the defensive. They thought the trip to Boracay would help them relax after all the debt, but they didn't know that for me, this would be the trip that marked the beginning of the end. 3 days after I received the evidence file from Clarice, there was a loud and urgent knock at my apartment door. I walked over, glanced quickly through the peephole, and saw my mother holding a stack of papers, her eyes red, with my father standing beside her looking both tense and determined. I opened the door a crack, and my mother immediately stepped forward, her voice urgent, telling me I needed to listen to them. Dad immediately jumped in, asking me to withdraw the credit card dispute because we are family. We can't treat each other like that. I looked him straight in the eye and firmly replied, "Family means respect, not taking advantage. Family is respect, not exploitation." Mom sighed deeply, her voice softening as she tried to appeal to my emotions, saying they knew this time was a bit too much. But I'd never let the family down before, so why now? I just gave a faint smile and answered that this time I clearly understood that what they called helping was actually making me pay for someone else's mistakes, and I had paid too many times already. My dad spoke harshly, saying I was embarrassing the family, but I responded word by word that this was completely worth it, because it wasn't the first time, and I knew Miguel had taken money from the family fund to gamble and invest in crypto, then lost it all. And the important thing was, my parents knew, but hid it from me. Mom's face briefly changed color, and Dad avoided my gaze. I went on to say that feeling betrayed by your own family was not just about losing money, but losing trust. And all these years I lived like the family's ATM, thinking it was my duty, but now it's over. Mom lowered her voice, almost pleading, saying, I was the youngest daughter and the family still needed me. But I cut her off, asking if the family needed me. Who asked if I needed the family? When I was sick or tired, was there anyone by my side? Or did everyone only remember me when they needed money? No one answered. The silence was thick. Then Dad said I was breaking up the family, but I shook my head, insisting that if the family falls apart just because I stop giving money, then it was never truly a family. Mom looked at Dad, but he just sighed heavily and turned away, and I understood they weren't here to apologize, but only to persuade me to withdraw the case so they wouldn't have trouble with the bank. I took a deep breath and clearly said that from today on, I'm ending my role as the family's ATM, will not pay for any responsibilities that aren't mine, and will never let the phrase family helps each other become a chain that binds me. Mom was about to speak, but I closed the door, not out of anger, but as a calm, decisive gesture. Leaning against the door, I felt my heartbeat slow down, no longer trembling or feeling guilty, just a strange sense of relief. I know after today they'll call me selfish, ungrateful, or even exclude me from family gatherings, but I'm not afraid of that anymore, because for the first time in many years, I lived true to my values and realized that family ties without respect are just a burden. If you were in my shoes, would you forgive or walk away? Right after the confrontation, I sat down at my desk, opened my computer, and started typing a detailed list of all the support I had given my family over the past 3 years. Every single expense came clearly into view. Tuition for my niece, nephew, home repairs, hospital bills for my dad, borrowed money never paid back, and even the amount they charged on my credit card to buy business class tickets for the Boracay trip. I wrote down the dates, amounts, reasons, and then totaled the final sum, a figure big enough to shock anyone. At the bottom of the list, I wrote a simple line. Please repay the full amount within 30 days from today. After this deadline, I will take necessary legal action. I took a photo of the list and sent it straight to the family group chat, which for years had only been filled with messages asking for money, along with photos of bills or complaints. After sending it, I set it to seen and turned off notifications. No one replied. 1 day passed, then 2, then 3. Silence. But I didn't feel worried or anxious like before. I had set boundaries, and this time, I wasn't backing down. On the 4th day, I received an envelope through express delivery. The envelope had my mother's name on it. I opened it, and inside was a bank check for the exact amount I had listed in the statement. No letter, no apology, no explanation. Just the cold, bare amount, as if that was their way of ending things as quickly as possible. I stared at the check for a long time. Part of me wanted to feel relieved, because I finally got back what was mine, but the real emotion was just emptiness. Money can be returned, but the years of being taken advantage of, the wounds from being betrayed by family, No amount can buy those back. I placed the check on the table, brewed a cup of hot tea, and sat thinking. If I put this money into my personal account, it would just be a bigger number, but it wouldn't change anything. I wanted to turn it into something more meaningful, something I could be proud of when I looked back. And so I decided to use all the money to set up a scholarship fund for young nurses, people like me a few years ago, juggling school and family responsibilities, often sacrificing their own dreams to take care of others. I reached out to a nonprofit organization, shared my idea and my hopes. They agreed to help with the paperwork, procedures, and managing the fund. Just 2 weeks later, the Silent Strength Scholarship Fund was born, a part of me, a proof that I had taken back control of my life and turned a painful story into a truly inspirational family story. The day the fund was announced on the organization's website, I received messages from strangers thanking me for creating opportunities for them or their children. Each thank you was like a small piece filling the emptiness inside me. For the first time in years, I felt that my giving was in the right place, not to cover someone's mistakes, but to create chances for those who truly deserve it. That evening, I stood by the window of my apartment, looking down at the lit-up streets of Quezon City. I knew this decision wouldn't change my family or erase what had happened, but it proved that I had changed, from someone caught in a cycle of exploitation to someone actively rewriting her own story. I don't know if they'll ever realize the value of what I did, but that no longer matters. What matters is that I chose a path I can look back on with a smile and pride. And if anyone asks, I'll say, this is how I turned betrayal into strength, and a sad story into a source of inspiration. 6 months have passed since I set up the scholarship fund. My life has changed more than I expected. I started allowing myself to enjoy things I once thought were luxuries, traveling across the Philippines, from watching the sunrise in Batanes, diving in Molbol, to kayaking in the emerald waters of Coron, all paid for with my own earnings. And more importantly, without feeling like I had to ask permission or owe anyone. During those trips, I met David, a British-Filipino photographer working on a project about regional cultures. We met while trekking together on a tour in Sagada and gradually became close. He didn't ask much about my past. He was just always there when I wanted to share. With David, I wasn't the girl who always helps her family or the walking wallet. I was just Maria, an ordinary woman with dreams and fears, and that made me feel lighter than ever before. One rainy afternoon in Quezon City, I stopped by a familiar cafe to take shelter from the rain. While ordering a drink, I heard a familiar voice behind me. I turned around. It was my mother. She was sitting in the corner, a steaming cup of cappuccino in front of her. At that moment, I didn't feel my heart pounding or my hands shaking like the times we faced each other before. I walked over, gave a small smile, and she looked up at me, her eyes still carrying the tiredness I had known. We exchanged a few polite words. She asked how my work was, and I said it was fine. I asked about Dad's health, and she said it was the same as before. No one brought up the past, and there were no apologies. Everything was polite and brief, like between two old acquaintances. As I stood up to leave, I looked her straight in the eyes and said slowly, I don't hate you, but I don't owe you any more. She was silent, only nodding slightly. I don't know if she fully understood what I meant, but that didn't matter anymore. I stepped out of the cafe, the rain had stopped, and the street was sparkling under the lights. I realized I had truly let go, not by forgetting, but by accepting and choosing a different path. From that moment on, I understood that happiness doesn't come from someone giving back what they took, but from reclaiming the right to decide for myself. And this story, with all its pain and quiet strength, will always be a part of me, an inspirational family story I hope will touch the hearts of those who have struggled to find themselves again. If there's one thing I've learned from everything that happened, it's this. Family should be a safe place to come back to, not your creditor. You don't have to burn yourself out just to keep others warm. We grow up believing we must sacrifice for our loved ones, that love means giving unconditionally. But true love is not based on exploitation or control. It's based on respect and understanding. I know out there many people are going through the same thing. trapped in the cycle of family obligations, to the point they forget they have the right to live for themselves. If you're in that situation, remember that setting boundaries doesn't mean you're ungrateful or cold. It simply means you're protecting your mental health, your future, and your dignity. And I want to ask you, has this happened to you? Have you ever faced a situation where your family took advantage of your love and sense of responsibility? Please share your family story in the comments. Who knows, your story might become a source of strength for someone out there, just like I hope this story will. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the Crying Inside channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. Each one carries a lesson, an emotion, and a glimmer of hope. See you in the next video, where we'll dive into another story, deep and real, just like life itself.